to another episode of Classic Dallas Cowboys Talk. I am Sean Farrell. God is great all the time. All the time, God is great. Jesus Christ died and he rose again. With that being said, let's get into it. So, the 1974 Thanksgiving Day game between the Dallas Cowboys and Washington Redskins, okay? The Cowboys were trailing big, okay? And Roger Staubach got knocked out of the game in the third quarter with a concussion. And they were down 16-3, right? And so Cowboys had a backup quarterback by the name of Clint Longley. Okay. He was able to hit Billy Joe Dupree with a 35-yard touchdown pass. Then Walt Harrison, he had a touchdown run too. Okay. Then ironically, Dwayne Thomas, the running back who fussed about his contract in 1970-71, he actually played for the Washington Redskins. Okay, he had a 19-yard touchdown run that put the Redskins ahead 23-17. Okay, and so it was then when Clint Longley hit Drew Pearson with a game-winning touchdown. Okay. So after that, there were some who said that Clint Longley had a inflated sense of what his role actually was with the Cowboys. Okay. And when I say inflated, I guess he thought he was a bigger deal than he actually was. Okay. So they say that comeback that he had against the Washington Redskins, that game went to his head. Okay. Then he began to think that he was better than Roger Staubach or whatnot. And so he really didn't see no playing time in 1975. Okay. Then in 1976, remember I said he thought he was a bigger deal than he actually was. He was throwing passes to Drew Pearson. Okay. Right before training camp, 1976. Okay. He was throwing passes to Drew Pearson. And Drew Pearson just so happened to drop a pass. Right. Drew Pearson dropped a pass and Clint Longley just yelled at him. He got on to Drew Pearson. And then Roger Staubach saw that. And Roger Staubach took great offense to this backup quarterback who was yelling at his main guy. So Staubach took offense to that when he saw that this backup was berating a Hall of Fame receiver. Okay. And so then, like I said, Staubach took exception to that. And they went to an open field. Okay. Clint Longley and Roger Staubach went to an open field. Okay. And Clint Longley threw the first punch. Right. Then Staubach tackled him and pinned him to the ground. Then assistant coach Dan Reeves came in and broke up the whole thing. Okay. And so then Dan Reeves said to Roger Staubach, Roger, if I were you, I'd be careful. I watch that guy. Because it was clear that Clint Longley had a volatile temper. And so A day later, okay, a day later, Roger Staubach was putting on his shoulder pads as he was getting ready to go out to practice. Okay, he was putting on his shoulder pads. Approached Roger Staubach when Roger wasn't even looking. He punched Roger Staubach. Okay, he punched Roger Staubach and knocked him into some equipment that caused a cut above his eye. So Clint Longley punched Roger Staubach, knocked him into some equipment, cut his eye. So here's where. So after Clint Longley did that, he immediately ran out of the Cowboys locker room, and then he called a flight and never came back to Cowboys training camp. Okay, he punches Roger Staubach. He runs out of the Cowboys locker room, catches a flight, and never comes back. And so Roger Staubach wrote in his book, I prefer to keep it that way. When Roger Staubach says, I prefer to keep it that way, means him and Clint Longley are not on speaking terms, haven't been on speaking terms ever since that day. And that's when Roger Staubach said, I prefer to keep it that way. Okay. So, and there are some people who called him a coward, like Thomas Hollywood Henderson. Not Roger Staubach a coward. Okay. Not Roger Staubach, but they called Clint Longley a coward for punching Roger Staubach and then running away. So I was watching NFL films, top 10 categories, okay? And they had a category that said top 10 collapses of all time. Guess who was number 10 on that list? The 2008 Cowboys. Yes. We were the number 10 worst single season collapse. The 2008 Cowboys, okay? So we started out 4-1 that year, okay? Had a couple of quality wins. We beat Cleveland in our season opener. Then we had an impressive win over Green Bay, okay? So we were in excellent shape, sitting at 4-1. Then we lost to Arizona. Then we lost to the Arizona Cardinals, okay? And that started a real bad stream right there. We went from being 4-1 to all of a sudden we're 5-4. Then the Roy Williams trade goes through. Then Terrell Owens is fussing about Jason Witten and his relationship with Tony Romo. But then we go from 5-4. We suddenly recover. We go from 5-4 to 8-4. And remember, Tony Romo had a broken pinky. Broke his pinky. And we had backups, Brad Johnson and Brooks Bollinger, if I said his name right. And we couldn't do nothing. We really couldn't do nothing on offense with Romo out. But yet, he came back, and then we go from 5-4 to 8-4. Okay. But the game I remember that really killed me, and really killed our season, was the home game against Baltimore. Okay. The home game against Baltimore. We gave up 2 long touchdown runs. Okay. I don't know who the first one was, but I remember the second one. It was a guy by the name of McLean. He wore number 33 for the Baltimore Ravens, and I believe his last name was McLean. But I remember Baltimore had 2 long touchdown runs that really killed our season. And I can remember the next day they were getting on to Jerry Jones. They were getting on to Jerry because that was the last game at Texas Stadium. Okay, Baltimore. When we played Baltimore, that was the last game at Texas Stadium. All right, and so they were getting on to Jerry Jones the next day. The media was for just ignoring the fact that they had just lost a game. And yet Jerry Jones is here celebrating after the game into Texas Stadium. So the media has some strong words for Jerry Jones, but nonetheless, I think that was that game that really killed our season. And then it was compounded when we lost 44 to 6. It was compounded when we lost 44 to 6 to Philadelphia. The last game of the season, to not only win the NFC East, but to get into the playoffs. Yeah. Yeah, we lost 44 to 6, and I remember the very next day waking up and reading the sports page. I can remember the headline on the sports page was the sports angle of the front page of the sports said cow bumped, COWBUMP, cow bumped. Okay, and it had it in big bold headline letters that said cow bumped over the fact that we had lost 44 to 6. Okay, I will never forget that. I'll never forget that, seeing that the next day. And thinking about that now, I should have saved that. I should have saved that. But yeah, we were number 10 on the all-time worst single season collapses. Okay. Yeah, so. And the game that Tony Romo's first NFL game, okay. His first real regular season action in the NFL game. Came at the expense of Drew Bledsoe. And they played the Giants on Monday night. And a crescendo had been building all season, where people were whispering about Tony Romo. Okay. And they needed, and I can remember after the Redskins game during that 2006 season, early in the 2006 season, you remember when Bill Parcells looked physically sick, okay? Bill Parcells looked physically sick because this group of guys that he was coaching was so mistake prone, okay? This team would do some of the most asinine things that Bill Parcells had ever seen, right? And so that continued into the Monday night game versus the Giants when Bledsoe was 7 for 11, I think, 111 yards, was sacked by LeVar Arrington in the end zone for a safety, then threw a couple of interceptions too. He did have a touchdown run, okay. And then comes Tony Romo, whose first pass was picked off. Tony Romo's first NFL pass was picked off at the start of the second half versus the Giants, but he did have a touchdown throw to Patrick Crane and Terrell Owens. He did throw 2 more interceptions, a 96-yard interception return. Okay. But after that game, we were pretty much stable at quarterback. So, yeah. All right. That's it. And that's all for Classic Dallas Cowboys Talk. I am Sean Farrell. I'm out of here. May God bless you all. Peace out.